Alright, people, alright. Inna alhamdulillahi wa kafa. Wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulih al-Mustafa. Wa ala ibadi alladhina irtada. Wa man bihudahum ihtada. Wa bi athari ahli al-Madinah iqtafa. Wa ba'd. Fasalamu Allahi ala al-qawm. Ahlan wa sahlan bikum wa marhaban. Morning, Layth. Bienvenidos a todos, people. Bakhair Raghale Khushamadid, and as always, Swagatam, Swagatam. Vah, 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 vah. I got so held up today, I thought, you know what? I don't. Am I even going to be able to make today's episode or what? Alright, but let me just check first and foremost what's going down. Can we. Alright, let me just do a sound check first and foremost. See what's going on with that. Alright. Salam from Toronto. Alright, people. So, just waiting for this. What's this mini feed saying? I should change my layout, this is gonna confuse me. What's going on, people? How's the sound, by the way? What's the red mark on your shirt? That's not a red mark, yeah. Come on, man. See, this is it. Can't take these people anywhere. That's the design. That's the design, people. Sound is alright. Somebody said sound. Sound. I don't know what that means. When did this start? This has just started, people. Mufti Saab. Alright, wa alaikum assalam, Shamaz, Leela, gee, you're doing it. Right, you're doing it. People are saying the sound is good, it's clear. Alright, that's what I want to hear. So what's going down? Alright, that's Illuminati. Right, I'm Batman, you're doing it. Zaki, Inaya, wa alaikum assalam, you're doing it. Right, so Shamaz jumping right in with a question. Before we just get to the questions, let's, as always, people, whilst people are tuning in, whilst they're clicking like, whilst they're clicking share, as they're meant to be, let's play some poetry for people to do that. Alright.
मुझको दरवाजे पे ही रोक लिया जाता है, मुझको दरवाजे पे ही रोक लिया जाता है, मेरे आने से भला आपका क्या जाता है, तू अगर जाने लगा है तो पलट कर मत देख, मौत लिखकर तो कलम तोड़ दिया जाता है, अगर जाने लगा है तो पलट कर मत देख, मौत लिखकर तो कलम तोड़ दिया जाता है, तुझको बतलाता मगर शर्म बहुत आती है, तेरी तस्वीर से जो काम लिया जाता है.
Alright, that's some Tahzeeb Hafi for you right there, people. An epic contemporary poet. Right, this layout I've done here, it's I don't know, man. I don't know. It's starting to annoy me. Right, so Shamaz, Leela, if the closer you get to Allah, the harder He tests you. How are you supposed to understand this? I'm not so sure that is necessarily accurate. People say that, that, the closer you are to God, the more He tests you. I don't think that's necessarily true in that way. I feel it's more so in the sense that the test becomes more meaningful for you, if that makes sense, as opposed to you get the hardest test. So people seem to have given it that spin that, the more tested you are, the closer you are to God. And I think they've done that in a rewarding way for people who are struggling to feel that, this is because I'm close to God. But there is no converse judgment from that statement. It doesn't work conversely. It doesn't mean if you are closer to God, He must test you more. Does that make sense? So first of all, there's no converse judgment from this statement that, those who God tests the most are the ones closest to him. Does not mean he necessarily, I understand that is understood as hardship, does not mean he puts everybody close to him through hardships. So it doesn't work the other way around, that if you're close to God, you get more hardships. The other thing is that what I feel is by tests, here it means more about they become more meaningful to you as opposed to the struggle. So it's more a qualitative as opposed to a quantitative. rather. Right, whilst you guys are tuning in, clicking like, clicking share. Whoa, what have I done here? Let me just see if I can fidget with this thing and fix it up. Alright, how many have I got? 6? Do I need 6? What about this? Or that? Sorry, I'm just taking a little look here. What am I missing out? Audio mixer. Right, okay. That is needed. You guys are thinking I've lost the plot now. At this stage, it's too late now. You're thinking it's too late. There's no hope for Mufti. Well, I can understand that. Okay, let's take a look quickly. Come on. All right. I've done it this way. Don't know if this is really the. Actually, I just got a better plan. People, you guys can't see anything what I'm doing, so it just sounds like I've completely lost the plot, which makes absolute sense. Don't worry about it, people. Don't worry about it. So, right now. Right. That's much better. So, people, get this out there. Spread the love. Spread it, man. Don't be embarrassed to share it. Don't feel that your secret's gonna be busted. Alright, we've done it. People, you see, you guys can't tell what I've been doing here, but all you need to know is that I've handled it. I was just mucking around with the software here. I changed the entire layout. See that within, like 20 seconds I did that? That's what I'm talking about, people. So, now that's a lot better now. Right, let me just bring back mi gente. Right, so, Saeed Khalifa, you're doing it. Saeed Khalifa says, Mufti, what are your thoughts on Dr. Adnan Ibrahim? My thoughts on Dr. Adnan Ibrahim are, I love Dr. Adnan Ibrahim. I haven't, it's been a little while. I haven't watched much of his things. I don't know why that is. I mean, usually YouTube used to kind of just post them up for me. So I used to just show me. But yeah, I'm an absolute fan of Dr. Adnan Ibrahim. I think he's doing great work in Europe. I'm not quite sure where he's based. I think, is it Netherlands, or is he based in one of the European countries, or is it Norway? But but once again, somebody who has very similar kind of, he's on a very similar wavelength to me in my thinking. See how I did that, as in he is on the same wavelength as me, as opposed to me being no, that just happened to come out that way. But yeah, I'm an absolute, I adore him, so I hope he's well. Cool. YouTube algorithm shows me Mufti. Alright. Mufti, you sexy beast. Topa. ये क्या हो रहा है? This scandal too big, this requires a
Dajjal with a small d. Or we can say mini Dajjals, no problem. But there is one Dajjal with a big D, okay?
Rhythm, correct? Maintain.
Oh, this one too much. Not too much. So, people, what's going down? What's going down? Mufti man, Saeed, yep, I much appreciated the super chat. Que pasó? Alright, Dervish, Johnson, how you doing, man? Que tal? What's going down? Why the name Abu Layth? Because the name is slick. You know that. Mufti's #1 fan, brother. I love you. Yeah, Gio, Meri Jan. I love you too, amor mio. There you go. Well, you guys know what's going down. Let me bring this down. I've missed somebody's super chat. Kapil Patel. How have you been on for people? What? Salam Mufti, have you been on for people who think.org? I haven't actually. It has a lot of content similar to your interpretation, e.g., no Isa, second coming. I've not heard of that. I will try and check it out. Eskimo says, Mufti, you need a scandal. Abe yaar. Samihuni, huh? Samihuni. Why do I need a scandal? Do I? This is the love I get, you see. I get people awaiting. Let me just bring this closer. You know, I got hold of this. Check this out, people. Let me forget my coffee can wait. Let me show you, get this, man. Check this encyclopedia out, people. Can you see it? Wow, this is the Encyclopedia of Psychoactive Plants, Ethnopharmacology. Whoa, it's doing it. It's just basically got everything in here. It's just it's the Sahih Bukhari of plants, people. But you know what I was reading up about on there was, let me show you guys. I was reading up about this, the Soma plant. This is quite fascinating. So this is from ancient India. There was something that they call in the Vedas, they call it Soma. Now it's not, they're not too sure what the Soma is. There's different discussions. So in this encyclopedia, they discuss it as well and go over the certain theories on it. So some people, they'd assume that it was a particular plant, and whereas Terence McKenna, he feels it was mushrooms. There's a huge there's a lot of kind of like investigation into what was this particular plant, this Soma. That what they do know is in the Vedas, they speak about in ancient India, people would make a drink out of it, and they would then consume that. And then the visions, and it also explains some of the things that they write down in the Vedas, which are taken literally by some people then. But it's these kind of things they're seeing. Very interesting. So was it DMT? That's what some of the people had argued. It is DMT. Some people had argued it was just the kind of magic mushroom drink that was made from that. But it's all very fascinating. It was considered a sacred drink in ancient Hinduism, and they believed that it was the kind of the counterpart to the Amrit, which was the drink of the gods in the heavens, and its counterpart on earth was this Soma. Very fascinating. Once again, this whole thing of ancient cultures and how they connected with nature. It's a very fascinating thing. I find it fascinating. People are going to think Mufti's lost the plot. Nothing new there. So, what Kapil Patel, you're doing it. Right, so Pietro de Prasa has come up straight up with a killing question. First of all, shukran for the super chat. Let me just bring up the Facebook people as well, make sure I can see the questions and comments. Right, so why did God create us? I think we're gonna need to consume all of the plants in here to understand that. No, not necessarily. Look, it is a privilege, one can say, to have been. Not as in to have been somewhere, to have existed. Don't you think so? No matter what people say, I feel it is a privilege, to have thought, to have conceptualized, to have fathomed, to have understood, to have felt, to have to have realized the concept of existence. So I feel that when you say, why did God create us? That is why he created us. So we have irfan. not a person irfan, but ma'rifah. We have what is this realization. Allah says, I created you and I made you so many people. لِتَعَارَفُوا. People say, oh, this means so you know one another. Sure, it can mean that as well. I would say that is the apparent meaning, but it is mushtaq, it is a derivative of ma'rifah, of having that knowledge, that awareness. And it's more than just ilm. It's like this awareness ba'da tadabbur wa tafakkur. That's why we say Allah has ilm. We don't say Allah has ma'rifah. Okay. We can say ma'rifatullah as in our ma'rifah of Allah, but we don't say Allah ya'rif. We say Allah ya'lam in Arabic. Because ilm is, the definition of ilm is idrakul ashya ala haqiqatiha, to understand things as they actually are in their reality. And ma'rifah is to comprehend things or to realize things. بعد تدبر أو تفكر or after contemplation or reflection, and God does not reflect over things like that. He doesn't come to realize things. He knows things with certainty. So insan, this ma'rifah is something that is specific to insan. And I would say that is exactly why, as Allah says, لِتَعَارَفُوا. That's my thoughts on it. Wrestling, you're doing it with the super chat, yeah, you're doing it. The subcontinent has produced works of tafsir. Sir Sayyid Ahmad Asri Abdul Karim Athari, who I often quote, that have moved away from the ma'thur based tafsir to ra'i, to put a label on it that goes beyond the ra'i of the classical era. Are there parallel works in the Arab world? If not, why? That is a very fascinating question. You see, so I feel, so first of all, the tafsirs done in Urdu during the, definitely in the 20th century, the early 20th century, and going right up, there's some amazing tafsirs that are done with some very open-minded people. I mean, it's unfathomable how open-minded they were, because today when you think of the Indian subcontinent, you cannot picture people like that. So people like, you're saying, Sir Sayyid Ahmed, you've got people like Allama Tamanna Imadi, you've got, he had a tafsir, I think his tafsir is lost today. because people didn't carry on. It was, I know Sheikh Farihuddin, Hamiduddin Farahi. Damn, there goes my throat. So Hamiduddin Farahi, he has a tafsir which is fascinating, but it's from a different angle. But then people like Maulana Abdul Karim al-Athari and all these kind of incredibly enlightened tafsir. There are parallels in the Arab world as well, but so you've got things like you've got tafsir you'll have al-Manar by Sheikh Rashid Rida. You'll have the you'll have a Tahrir wa Tanwir by Sheikh, the legend, the Grand Mufti of the Malikiya. My, I would say, part of who I trace some of my ijazat through, the Maliki Don of the 20th century, Sheikh Ibn Ashur. His tafsir, Tahrir wa Tanwir, is incredibly enlightened. Like that, there are some, but you see, even with the Urdu tafsirs, the issue is this, that the majority of the clergy are not an enlightened people. They're not like I would say overwhelmingly not, like 99%. These people who are enlightened are an extreme minority. So what happens is the majority kind of drown them out. And there's some that they can't because they're too big, like Ibn Ashur. He's just too big to drown out. Otherwise, they don't really like what he says, but they can't deny him. He's just one of those people that just has gained acceptance everywhere. But otherwise, like, what will happen is the sectarianism just proliferates and it kind of kills off anything else. So today, when you think of the subcontinent, Indian subcontinent, you won't hear of Tamanna Allama Tamanna Imadi. Nobody will even quote him. You won't even know what his name was. So it's only because of a few people having revived his work. Or when you think of Maulana Abdul Karim al-Athari, the Salafiyya won't really, they won't claim his tafsir today, even though they probably just leave him there, but that's because his tafsir isn't that popular. If it was popular, they would have huge issues with it, even though he is from that movement. So yeah, I hope that helps. All right, what is going on? S. Miyagi, you're doing it, Miyagi. Salam Mufti, recommend to me any books on intro to philosophy, both Islamic and non. Jazakallah al khair. Shukran for the super chat, much appreciated. Now, you see, there's so many. Right, where are my philosophy books? Right, so they must be behind there somewhere. Right, so in English, I mean, there's many philosophy books. There was a great book I read once called Does the Center Hold? I think that's what it was called. But it was done in a very kind of a great way. It was written, the way it had the equivalent of an entire year's almost philosophy course, but it was kind of interwoven in a way that was fun and had great learning guides and learning tips along the way, animations, things like this. It was a fun book to read. That stands out for some reason. Yeah, to have a try of that. I mean, there's so many things for I don't know what to say. There's a book I've got about something, I think it's called, is it 50 of the top philosophical works, and it's got summaries of them. I've got one on psychology as well. But you could try also learning philosophy through jokes. That's a fascinating. So there's Daniel Klein, and I've forgotten the co-author with him, but they have a series of books, small books, but it's learning philosophy through jokes. Plato and a platypus walk into a bar. Aristotle and an aardvark go to Washington. Heidegger at the pearly gates of heaven or something like this. But they've got a few of them, and they're definitely worth if you're into philosophy, it teaches it, integrates it into humor, which is great fun. The Islamic philosophy, honestly, I don't think there's been justice done to that, because surprisingly, Muslims didn't really honor our philosophers. So the great philosophers like Al-Kindi, and then after him, you're going to have like Al-Farabi, Abu Nasr Al-Farabi. You'll have obviously Ghazali. You see, Ghazali is known, but not so much for his philosophy either. More so for his Aqidah and Usul and that kind of stuff, Sufism. And even though he wasn't a Sufi, but he was kind of from the kind of pioneers of modern day or later Sufism. But yeah, so Ibn Rushd, you've got right, there's a few, but the problem is that Muslim scholars did not like the Muslim philosophers, so they didn't like people like Farabi. Farabi has his own rendition of Plato's Republic called Al Madinat al Fadila. I do have it here somewhere, but you see, the Muslims didn't like that, and because they said that these guys are just speaking kufar and we don't like them. And Ibn Rushd, for example, people don't like him for that. They just like him for the fiqhi thing, Bidayat al-Mujtahid, but they don't like his philosophical stuff. Now, I say that's a shame. It's actually the Europeans, and through the Renaissance, who then have kept the works of the Muslim philosophers alive. So, like Ibn Rushd's works, Ibn Rushd had, was embraced by the Europeans for his work because he brings back to life Aristotle, as do the people before him. I mean, even, to a great extent, when we're going to look at people like Plotinus and Neoplatonism, these things survive into Europe, but through Muslim philosophers like Farabi, who's Al-Ustad, he's seen as the great teacher, the grand teacher. And this is because they brought those, they weren't just merely translators or transmitters. They were commentators. They were adding qualitatively to this work. So yeah, but the whole philosophical tradition in Islam, Muslims, was kind of, there was a disservice done to it by Muslims, unfortunately, and it was honored by the European non-Muslims. So this is why a lot of it today has survived, but through them. And then later on, as some Muslims got impressed, they brought it back to life as well. So yeah, I hope that makes some sense. All right. What is going on, people? Right, I've read that. All right, we're up to, I take it we're up to, yep. Whoa, the chat is moving. Everything is fine. Yep, trying my best. Okay. Somebody said, love you for Allah's sake. I have a question. Is it haram to play with? Oh, the question is gone. Whoa, these are moving so fast today. Does nail polish invalidate? Let me see if the questions are coming up here. Right. Shamaz had asked a question, which I didn't, super chatted a question. I didn't get round to it. Thoughts on religions like Baha'i and Sikhism, are they not equally as logical as Islam? Emphasis on religion and science. Yeah, I mean, I suppose I mean, I'm not sure what the question exactly is. Are they not rational? I'm sure they are rational to a great extent. Yeah, so I'm not sure if that's exactly the question. Right, is nail polish, Truth Seeker says, does nail polish invalidate the wudu? Nail polish does not invalidate the wudu, people. You can, just in case some of you want on your weekends, Right, so right, the Qari Saab turns up with his nail polish on. Right, so size matters, people, when it comes to coffee. But yeah, so nail polish does not invalidate wudu. You can do wudu on top of the just wash over, it's fine. And this is based on a number of things. Amongst them is that the Sharia simply asks you to deal with the apparent. So even in wudu, you just wash the apparent. So hence you're not required to wash. I mean, you can rinse out your mouth, but you're not required to rinse out your mouth. You're not required to wash inside the nose. I mean, you can do this, but it's not a requirement. You're not required to wash inside the eyes, for example, even though some of the Salaf used to wash inside their eyes. But you're not required to wash inside the ear because the batin is not a requirement. Hence, even when a person is washing his feet, let's say, you're not required to wash between the toes. It's not a requirement. I mean, some scholars may say it is, but generally it isn't. So that's because you're only required to deal with the apparent. So whatever the apparent is. So in that case, you're not washing the actual tips. You're washing the nail on top, and then the nail happens to have polish on it. You're washing it however it is. It makes no difference. There are also fatwa of the Salaf, including the legend Imam Malik, who speaks of things like the ring. And if you're wearing a ring, and he says that in certain fatwa that you're not required to remove it. Now, where it gets interesting is the questioner asks that what if it's dayiq? What if it's really tight and it does not allow water to pass underneath? So Imam Malik says, so what? So this is over something which is not a necessity. It's not a requirement to wear a ring, and you could take it off, And so the point is, if you're not required to remove it for wudu, and that's a ring and it's just jewelry, then why would you be required to remove nail polish? And another important factor is that, the Salaf weren't this kind of OCD about stuff. This is very much a later post-Islamic occurrence. This whole obsession with this obsession with detail, where everything becomes fanatically ritualistic. This, I don't think that's a good thing in my understanding. I don't like that. But so people, they become obsessed with detail. What about this? What about that? What's this? Oh my God, have I missed a spot here? Have I? And people might say, yes, well, there's a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ says, Wailul lil aqab. Okay, if that hadith be true, let's just go with it for now. This hadith where a person told a person to wash his feet. Now, you see, but that's the apparent thing. You see, now, wait there. I don't know what's up with my throat today. So, right now, you see, in the Arab climate, where there was sand, dust, things like this, it is apparent when a person has not washed a whole portion that is still, let's say, of his limb, like his hand or his arm or his feet, that are still covered in dust. It wasn't, some people try to say, oh, he missed a tiny spot on his feet. And the Prophet, because the hadith says the Prophet saw it from far, and he said, oh, wailun lil aqabi minan nar. Right, that, that damn, those, like, aqab is the heel of the foot. So oath that basically those such heels are damned to the hellfire. That's what it kind of means. Now, you see, that's absurd to suggest that the Prophet noticed a tiny spot of, because you can't tell these things. These things are not like, if a person is washing his hand over there, you wouldn't know that, oh my god, he missed a tiny part over here. You wouldn't know this. The only way you'd know this for the feet is the person did not really wash his feet and they were covered in dust still. So as he's just rinsed his, rinsed his face and arms and wiped, and maybe just kind of on one foot chucked some water, but the other foot is clearly dusty. And the Prophet said that to him. That's how that was. It wasn't about a tiny speck or a dot. Yeah, and then the Malikiya have issued fatwa, the fatwa of Ibn Dinar, I believe, on where a woman, for example, has been cooking and there's a small amount, like string-like, let's say, small amount of dough that she's been kind of preparing, and that's still stuck on her hand or arm or something, and she doesn't notice. She washes it off, but it's still, let's say there's a small amount still there, and then she does wudu over it later to realize that there was a small amount of dough. Now, she's not required to repeat that, they say. I mean, he says, and that's part of the Maliki madhab. So the point is to beware of this tanattu', this kind of like deep fanatic obsession with the deen. Cool. All right, people. All right. Aisha Ahmed asks, sorry, that's Ziryab Jamal saying Achilles heel. Yeah, that's what it is, really. So, damn, I just forgotten what was your question again? I think I've just forgotten. Oh, is Islam a way of life? Right, so, yeah, I mean, you see, this thing, is Islam a way of life? I don't know what that really means. When people say Islam is a way of life, that, you see, it's, see, it puts you in a strange position to tackle that question, because if you say no, you just sound horrible. And if you say yes, you're just singing along to a tune that doesn't really have any meaning behind it. You're just kind of towing the line, because Islam never ever taught that it is a way of life. Like, so the Quran never says Islam is a way of life, for example. The Prophet never taught Muslims that Islam is a way of life. I mean, one could infer a kind of meaning from different diverse teachings of Islam to say, well, Islam is about your whole life being in submission to God. Fine, in that sense, you could infer this meaning and use it, but Islam never really said that about itself. So the Quran never teaches you, the Prophet never taught you that Islam is a way of life. This is a modern statement. Okay, this statement arises in modernity, probably most likely in the 20th century, and it comes in contrast to colonialism and modernity, because the colonialists brought with them modernity and Muslims tried to counter modernity. So not just Muslims, Christians as well, they tried to counter modernity by, digging deeper and entrenching themselves in a more far-fetching fundamentalism within the religion. So they started to say things like, well, we don't need them. Islam is a way of life anyway. We have it all. So I'm not quite sure when people say way of life, what they actually mean. Something is a way of life, as in it deals with matters which are to do with your life? Is that what it means? But then, in all honesty, most of the matters with the Sharia are just like man-made stuff. They're not really, and there's stuff that changes. So like if you look at all of these, let's say here is a huge fiqh book that you can see. Now, only the first chapter will be dealing with worship and things like that, and all the rest are just dealing with transactions, buying, selling. It'll be dealing with things like renting. You rent an apartment, you rent this, you kind of hire out land, and you make a certain deal, muzara'a, and all these kind of things, and that's going to be the bulk of all of those volumes. Now, those rulings, they never got them from the Quran. There's not going to be in the Quran speaking about, oh, if you want to hire out land, and if you you want to stick a peg into the wall, but the neighbor is objecting. The Quran isn't going to speak about stuff like that. Some of these things you might find some hadith, but a lot of it is just based on fatwa. Just the scholars just gave fatwas, just based on common sense. Right, somebody said you missed. Oh, look at that. What the hell am I doing? Right, you missed a super chat. Un momentico. People, what's going? Can't see it. Right, okay, is this the one? That's as far back as I can go. Kapil said, do you believe humans and every creation is used as examples for future creations? Allah emphasizes previous civilizations as examples to learn from. Yeah, sure. I mean, people are always going to be an example for other people who come after them. So we're learning so much from World War II history, from Nazi Germany, from this, we're learning about it. We're kind of going over it. I'm sure people in the future will learn from us. Think, oh, well, look at those idiots. Yeah, of course. So, okay, I've covered that. What's this? New Smithsonian says, why does Allah give very random and specific guidance on some matters of etiquette, i.e. leave the Prophet's house, but not on everything else, i.e. take your shoes off when visiting? Well, shukran for the super chat, Smithsonian. I mean, that's a weird question. I'm not sure what that means. The Arabs never used to take their shoes off when they used to go inside the house. I don't think they did. I mean, why would they take their shoes off when they go inside? I mean, maybe they had a certain room, a quarter that they did for that place, but I don't think that was a rule that they used to put shoes outside their house and go in. I don't think so. I've not come across it. Maybe, I don't know. But why doesn't God say that? Because that's not the problem, and that's just being silly. It's not a small matter, speaking about etiquettes of causing people inconvenience. That's a big deal. How you should take your shoes off is irrelevant. It's not, it doesn't register. It's not even a blip on the radar. But causing people inconvenience is something significant. Mufti, you missed a super chat. Someone asked, what do you think of kratom? I don't know what do you mean by kratom? I'll have to check that up. I'm not sure what kratom is. What is kratom? This is where I realize I don't know. If somebody just made up a word just to kind of say, hey, let's see what Mufti says about this. So, what is going down, people? What is going down? Right, I need to, you know what? Today's just been one of those days. Somebody said, Mufti Saab, I have an interview in the morning. Can you make dua for me? Crichton from Red Dwarf. Is that who it is? Crichton from Red Dwarf? Red Dwarf was epic, if that's what your question is. Then I think, yeah, Red Dwarf. I used to love watching Red Dwarf as a kid. I haven't, maybe I should check out an episode now. I don't know whether I'd find it as funny now, but yeah, it was amazing then. Right, so what is going down? What should we do in Dhul Hijjah? Hajj? Random guess? Right, so no, what should a person do in Dhul Hijjah? Right, so in Dhul Hijjah is the month of Hajj, but there isn't going to be a Hajj this year. There's no problem. Don't freak out. Person, look, you can. There's nothing specified like that. I think sometimes people should be grateful that there's nothing specified. It allows people to just be themselves, to do what's easy for them. If you want to give charity, give charity. If you want to focus on a bit of recitation of the Quran, do that. If you want to focus on dua, do that. I would feel that there's a great liberty and blessing in a lack or in the absence of specificity. I think because you just have freedoms. If you want to just focus on learning, then you focus on learning. If you want to focus on, there isn't anything specific unless you're going to do Hajj. Then there's obviously specific things to do. But for other people worldwide, there's no specificity. There is the sacrifice that we do, and even that I do feel that is just symbolic. Okay, right. Actually, this brings me on to another question I was meant to answer, and I kind of forgot. And that was about what are my thoughts on Ibrahim alayhi salam and the whole scene of him preparing his son for sacrifice. Now, what is that about? And the verse Tallahu lil Jabin, that when he's kind of preparing the sacrifice. Now, why would God ask this? Why would God ask Ibrahim alayhi salam to sacrifice his son? Now, my understanding of this, first of all, is that God never asked Ibrahim alayhi salam to sacrifice his son. That was never divinely asked. And the Quran never states that Allah asked him. Rather, the Quran simply reiterates Ibrahim alayhi salam telling his child. Now, in the Quran, it doesn't specify who that child is. Many Muslims felt it was Ishaq, as the Jewish people felt. Imam Malik felt it was Ishaq. Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu an felt it was Ishaq. And other people, Sa'id ibn Musayyib and other people, and many others felt it was Ismail. It doesn't make a difference. I would have personally thought it was the firstborn. So the firstborn is Ishaq generally. That's how it's understood. Some people may choose to differ, but since that's Ibrahim's first son, it would make more sense to me that he was the one being understood by Ibrahim alayhi salam that needed to be sacrificed. And what was this all about? So Ibrahim alayhi salam, now because he does not have a child, he yearns for a child, which is perfectly understandable. Now, when he has a son eventually, and you can imagine how dear that son is to him now. This child, he's not been able to have a child, and now he's had a child, and this child is so dear to him. Now, you see, Ibrahim alayhi salam lived in a time when people used to do things as human sacrifices. So this was it was not an uncommon phenomenon. People would sacrifice human beings, and they would sacrifice their own children. Now, Ibrahim alayhi salam it would have been natural for him to have an anxiety over his kid, especially since he longed for a child. And it's like how you see, for example, it's reported by women who are pregnant, for example, in the late stages of pregnancy, they will have nightmares, and often nightmares to do with things like losing their child. And that's because, you see, when something, and that's obviously a slight approximation of this kind of anxiety and fear, but even with other things, when you get something that you're so, wow, like it's like you wanted it and you finally get it, you are overtly, like you are so high in, like you go far and beyond in being protective. You are overprotective, hyperprotective of this thing, and you become very frightened of it getting broken or damaged. And this could be property, it could be a thing, but it could be people as well. It could be a child, it could be some person. Now, in the same way, Ibrahim alayhi salam has this kind of anxiety over his child. Now, he sees a dream in which, because he has this kind of unmatched love for himself, speaking in his life, that this is a newly found, unprecedented love that he has for his child. He sees in a dream that this is a distraction from God. And God is saying to him, he sees this is his dream. He sees that not that God is saying to him, but that in order to prove his worth, that he has not abandoned God, he needs to sacrifice this thing, this child, that is the primary recipient of his love and devotion. So he has to sacrifice him, because that is taking up, it's absorbing all his love, and he needs to show that he is still committed to God. So he sees this in a dream. Now he narrates this dream to his son. Now it's his son who says that, ya batif'al ma tu'mar, this is a divine commandment, you do it, and you will find me patient from the sabirin, from those who have sabr. Now Ibrahim alayhi salam he is then swayed to believe that, right, maybe it is, because I saw this in a dream, that in order to prove, because I found myself now becoming so preoccupied with the love of this child, I need to sacrifice that, because that's the most beloved thing to me, to God, to show God that I actually love him more. I need to prove myself to God. And remember, this human sacrifice thing existed. It was not uncommon at all. So when Ibrahim alayhi salam is going there and making the preparations with his child for the sacrifice, here he receives revelation. And Allah tells him that, look, no, that this is not right, and that there's a ram that is seen there by where he is. That sacrifice that then. You see, sacrifice that as a symbol, and let this be an absolute stop on human sacrifices for infinity to come. That human sacrifices are unacceptable. They are an abomination. And sacrifice, if that's what you want to do, then you're going to eat. I mean, they would eat animals anyway for survival. You're going to eat that. Sacrifice that to God. Let that be a symbol of your love and sacrifice to Allah. And hence that sacrifice is only symbolic. Allah says in the Quran that the meat of these creatures do not reach me. It is just your taqwa, your kind of devotion that counts. The animal you sacrifice doesn't mean per se anything. So really, this was the moment in which human sacrifices were clearly outlawed. I mean, not that they were acceptable before, but it was a point was made about them. I'm not trying to say that they were okay before. I'm trying to say that a point was made that no, Ibrahim alayhi salam by his actions spoke out against that and sacrificed a ram. Now, so that's the backdrop to that story. What I was going to, because I'd been asked to explain that, but I was going to say, fast forwarding to our day and age, we don't need to sacrifice that many animals now. I feel that since it's symbolic, it could be done as in, I know it's acceptable one for an entire family, but we could expand that even more. Much larger groups for just one animal symbolically being sacrificed for that. That's what I feel ought to be. Whether people will do that or not, I don't know. Right, so let's move on to the next question. New Smithsonian, shukran for the super chat. Why does Allah need us to praise Him? Allah does not need us to praise Him. Right, Coco says, Monday, Tuesday, happy days. I hope you can answer me someday. All right, okay. Alex said, I'm not Muslim, but I like Mufti Abu Layth's views on Islam. Shukran. Muchas gracias, Alex. Right. Somebody, Ziryab says that maybe the narrative of Ibrahim was the watershed moment where human sacrifices in Babylon, Sumeria was rife. I mean, they were common. They were, as in, it wasn't uncommon, put it like that. And this was the moment to, in a declarative manner, make a statement that these things are an abomination. But it seems that what happened is Muslims over time didn't seem to emphasize that part anymore. They just carried on about the story and the sacrifice, but they didn't, it's not that the other part maybe is unknown. Maybe people know that, yeah, that there were other sacrifices and stuff, but they seem to have not put their focus on that. They've just focused on the story of sacrificing the son, and then they've also thought, well, actually, maybe God had wanted him to sacrifice, and they've gone with that story and just emphasized, and then it's just told as God told him to sacrifice his son. It starts from one thing and it ends up as that. Mufti, is the sky blue or blue is the sky? Well, that's the question, my friend. That's the question. Wasif Hussein, how will human beings practice Islam on Mars when they become a multi-planetary species? Yeah, we'll have to get there first. East London Munda, shukran for your super chat. He says, can I do mut'ah for 1 hour? This one not nice, my friend. 1 hour. That's all East London Munda has for a relationship. Just 1 hour. 1 hour, everything's done. Wah, chalo. How Ibrahim, as you know, his wife can't be pregnant. How he know that he is not? How he is not? What? Oh, the question's gone up. I missed it. Damn, the question came, but it went. So whoever posted that, you can post it again. ¿Cómo aprendiste a hablar español? I'm still studying, man. Still studying. It's books. Any perfume review? I didn't bring any perfume actually up. No, But I will. I have actually, recently. Every single week, I'm getting perfumes. By the way, that's so many. I've become a huge fan of that. I have reviewed previously, Joe Malone, Oud and Bergamot, but I've become so much of a so. I really like it now, just as a. Yeah, but what's an interesting one that hmm, right, there's I tried D&G, what is it? What's it called? Velvet exotic leather or something. But it's something like that. But that's actually it's all right. It's quite good. Um Damn, there's just so many. I just, you know what? Gotta open I have like several drawers just full of them. Uh, what I do is I get testers, like 10 mil, and I try them out because many of them I don't like them, and I just kind of see how they are, and if I like them, I'll get them. But yeah. Right, so what is going down? What is going down? Tom Ford, Oudwood. Yeah, I mean that's a classic. What are the Tom Fords have I recently um I got hold of a few more actually, and I've got a few more coming actually. Just uh yeah. I don't know. They've Mufti, let's discuss what? Human beings. Mufti, do any scholars hold your views on hijab? You'll have to ask them, I guess. You'll have to ask them. Right, so why do people fold their prayer mat after they've prayed? Yeah, that's another level of piety. Right, Avold Cast, shukran, much love for your super chat. Let me show you guys what I mean by I did have here. Let me just see. Right, I don't know if you guys can see this, but speaking of amazing piety, these are the kind of stories that Muslims will post on social media, and everybody will share them and say Subhanallah, Subhanallah. This is so. So basically, some guy catches a flight first class, and they bring him some alcoholic drink, and he's like, I don't want, sorry, it's okay. So the air hostess comes back with she's kind of done it up, she's put it into this impressive glass, and he's like, no, I don't want it. Then they bring it back on this platter, and they make it even more impressive, and they're like, no, I don't want it. And then they come back with flowers around the drink, and God. And by this stage you already know the amount of BS that's in this story. But anyway, then he's like, no, I don't want it, it's okay. Now they're so confused that they get the pilot turns up. He says, please, sir, please, this one not nice, my friend, this one not nice. He says, I want you, why don't you just drink it, please? So he says to the pilot, I tell you what, why didn't you just have it from me? And the pilot says, well, sorry, sir, I can't drink, I'm on duty. And if I drank, I would, I could crash the flight. And he says, well, you can't drink whilst you're on duty. A Muslim is always on duty. And if I drink, I will crash my dunya and my akhirah. Subhanallah, Subhanallah, Allahu Akbar, Allah.
Stupid.
I mean, I don't know what is wrong with people. You see some of these stories and you're like, oh, mashallah, blessed are the naive. Yeah, I mean, if you believe that stuff, that is. We need to kind of grow out of this. Yeah. God, so what's going down, people? What is going down? I did, what's this? Right, by the way, those of you who haven't, I didn't share what my latest mind trap was, people. If you haven't seen it, it's with Wazio. Very interesting, sentimental kind of journey explained in the words of the Wazio himself. Do check it out. It's about charity, the humanitarian cause and aid, and Wazio's travels through his past into his current, his present, going around the world, seeing people in crises, the help he's been involved with. What are some of the, we discussed, what are some of the problems with charities? Why are people distrustful? What does it mean when people say 100% donation policies? All of these things, do check them out. I forgot to put that up, so that's awesome. This chat is a mess. Hamish says this chat is a mess. Claro que sí, claro que sí. Right, so whilst you people, I'm just checking if there's any. Oh, right, that also, I forgot to mention in the news thing, people, Shamima Begum can return to the UK. Oh, I don't know. God, you know, for some reason, to be honest, I didn't realize she was still alive, but yeah. So she's returning. Is that a good idea, bad idea? Whatever, but I just feel, you know, it's one of those things that's gonna cause a huge racket. But yeah, I suppose if they're saying she can come back, then she can come back and get tried, I guess. Yeah. No, why doesn't she go to Saudi Arabia? That is a good point, though. Why don't they make a claim for her to seek asylum in a Muslim country? That would be fascinating. Saudi Arabia would be like, cha, putar. Cha, cha, cha. Pietro de Brasa has, you're doing it with the super chat, Petro. You're doing it. Let me just bring up if the Quran is God's total revelation and guidance, even on small matters of etiquette, why do we still need Hadith? You see, the Quran, it's not on small etiquettes always, you know, going to cover those issues. I don't feel inconveniencing people is a small issue. The fact that Allah in the Quran on one verse highlights inconvenience should be avoided does not now mean the Quran is full of, you know, that is a trivial matter. I feel that you're trivializing this. It is a big deal, you see. You have to remember that these subtleties break societies, especially when a society is that small. It's not like, see, we're too used to the world today. These, you know, highly populated, urbanized cities, metropolitan cities that we live in. The world back then did not know this kind of a world. So these small settlements of people, it's not a small thing for them. For them, it was huge. So, yeah, I think some people are just, because I've had so many questions now on this, why did God say about, you know, not inconveniencing the Prophet? Why is this? I don't know I don't know who's more inconvenienced here. You know, it's like, people seem to be so inconvenienced by this. Why did God reveal that? The angels are like, acha, acha, acha. Next time we'll ask you. Right, so, I didn't read my... do you do any classes on how to wear earrings? And I'm trying to be funny and it was the... Oh, bloody hell, I can't see the name. Damn. I'm trying to be funny and I'm trying to be funny. It's okay, Annie. My mom and dad are cousins, Annie. See, that's why I wanted to catch the name, but damn. You see, you're lucky the Facebook things I can't kind of scroll back on, whereas the YouTube I can scroll the comments. So, right, just one moment. Right, so his name is Dusty Foot. Dusty Foot. Oh, well, you are a strong argument for why why brothers and sisters shouldn't marry each other. You're a strong argument for that. I mean, from the, putting all the scientific and all of that aside, you're the phenomenological proof of why there should not be a love child to siblings. Right, so what is going on? Right, Ishaq Mela, you're doing it with the super chat. Is that you? Does one need ijaza before being allowed to teach? Will Edip and Usman Tahir, will Edip be on Mind Trap again? It was amazing. Yes, Edip, Professor Edip, inshallah, will, of course. And Ishaq Mullah. I do have another... I've got a few professors lined up. One or two of them this coming week. I should have... who have I arranged for tomorrow? I need to be more sober when I was doing this. Right, who have I arranged for tomorrow? Right, so there's for Friday, it's Dr. Fahad Khan. Should be having him, who's also works around psychology and things like that before. But I'll check my diary, people. Right, but I've got a Mind Trap on tomorrow, nevertheless. So cool. Can I seek asylum because I'm Mariz Muhabbat? Hi. Yeah, speaking of Mariz Muhabbat. Alright, I got a story for you guys. Yeah, I got a story for you. Alright. So, because I don't want you guys to feel that, oh my God, we're not getting any stories. And since we've been reminded here by Mariz Muhabbat saying, I am Mariz Muhabbat, let me tell you guys a tragic story. Oof. So, there was he would have been scholarly trained, or equivalent, I believe. Although I don't think he was a renowned scholar in that sense or anything. But there was a person called Ibn Zurayq. Now, if I did print. So Ibn Zurayq al-Baghdadi. Now, in this tale, people, this person who hails from Baghdad, Iraq, over 1,000 years ago, so he's in the 300 Hijri, 4th century of Islam. The kind of time when you've got legends like Ibn Abi Zayd al-Qayrawani in, young Malik, and you've got it's after the, but you've got some major muhaddithin around a bit before him, but like people like Ibn Hibban and Ibn Khuzaymah, and you've got like great people around still. Is that time anyway, just over 300 years after the Prophet, 350 years about that time. So this person is in Baghdad, and he's settled down, he's married. Now he's struggling with livelihood. Now he has a beautiful wife. Wow. Wow. Let me bring up the photo. Not, obviously I don't have that, but all the descriptions write that he was married to, he had an absolutely beautiful wife. You know, these kind of things, they just intrigue everyone, isn't it? You could be reading something and they go, well, she was absolutely beautiful. And you're like, huh? Yeah? Yaar koi picture bhi hai yahan pe kya? So he has this stunning wife. This is what the people who write, they mention. And he was madly in love with her, and she, as vice versa, do taraf, it was two-way love. It wasn't a one-way street, it was two-way. It wasn't even a two-way street, it was an expressway. It was a motorway going both ways. But what happens is he's struggling to make a living. So he hears that there's a competition for somebody who can kind of come up with certain, like a script, or he can come up with something, but it's all the way in Al-Andalus. And the winner, or the person who, you know, this patron is impressed with, will have an immense reward of great monetary value. So basically, cha-ching, big bucks. So he travels from Baghdad all the way across to Spain. That's where this was. He finally gets to Spain. But wait, before he sets off, his wife says to him, she says, "Na, baba, na, munna, na, na." She says, no. That's way too far. That's a different continent. Don't go. So he says, look, we need money. I need to go. She says, why don't you try something else? Try your luck here, a neighboring town, neighboring city. Don't go all the way to Al-Andalus, you know, to Spain, considering they're in Iraq. So he doesn't listen to her. He says, look, amor mio, you have to wait. Right now, my destiny is calling me. So he sets off on this journey, travels, endures hardship, gets to Spain. He arrives there eventually, and it's a very lengthy journey, as you can imagine. When he gets there, he realizes that the patron who had put out this kind of competition, global competition, has kind of withdrawn and said that something's happened, and he's saying, no, there is no more, I'm not supporting, whatever it was, I'm not in need of it. So he becomes incredibly disheartened. And he thinks, well, you know what, this has been a waste. So I better go back. Let's pack our bags, people. We're going right back. He sets off on his return journey, and he falls ill on the way. So they tell him he's still in he's around the edge of Muslim Spain, and they tell him, look, maybe you should just wait till you get better. He tries a couple of days, it's not working. He says, you know what, forget it. Let me just travel. I'll make it, I'll get better along the way. And he sets off, he goes, he has to go through North Africa, and certain parts are like deserts and stuff like this. And people, lo and behold, he's struck down with death. They find him, and he has this paper with him. And on it, he's written a poem to his wife, is the love of his life. And he writes a poem to her, and he's kind of holding on to that, and he's died. And this is how they find him. And this poem, because it's the only poem he ever wrote, it's called the Yatima, the orphan, Yatimat ibn Zurayq. And I came across this and I thought, you know what, this would be, whoa. But in this poem, he writes to her that, you were right all along. I should never have left. And some of the things he says, though, he says, لا تعذليه فإن العذل يولعه. قد قلت حقا ولكن ليس يسمعه. Allah. He says to her, like, don't rebuke him now. Like, don't find, correct him now in that sense. Like, this just further, it kind of enrages him more. That what you said was the truth. But if only he'd listened. جاوزت في نصحه حدا أضر به من حيث قدرت أن النصح ينفعه. He says, you overdid it in your kind of counsel, your kind of good advice to him in telling him don't go. And it got to a point that it just annoyed him. She obviously must have started nagging. And it reached a point where what should help him, your advice, was now, harming him. So he just had to go. And he kind of says to her, like, don't now criticize him for having not listened. Like, فاستعمل الرفق في تأنيبه بدلا من عذله فهو مضني القلب وموجعه. He says, rather than now being harsh towards him, soften up towards him. Be soft. That criticizing him will only further break his heart. So he says, يكفيه من لوعة التشتيت أن له من النوى كل يوم ما يروعه. Is this not enough for him as a consequence that every day of this distance he suffers? Right. He says, كأنما هو في حل ومرتحل موكل بقضاء الله يذرعه. He says, as though every day he is in travel, like, because I've been on the get-go since I've left. I've, traveled all the way here. It's not worked out, having to travel back. But it's as though the destiny of God keeps pushing me here and there. He says, وَمَا مُجَاهَدَةِ الْإِنسَانِ تُوصِلُهُ رِزْقًا وَلَا دَعَةِ الْإِنسَانِ تَقْطَعُ. Allah. He says, and it's not that trying hard necessarily means you will attain rizq. You will attain provision. And simply relaxing does not mean that you will be cut off from your rizq. Allah. See, because he just relaxed there and him undertaking all this hardship, it didn't mean he obtained any providence from it. He says, أستودع الله في بغداد لي قمرا بالقرخ من فلك الأزرار مطلعه. He says, I've left in the safety of Allah. I've entrusted to Allah a moon. He's referring to his wife, yeah. A moon, a qamar in Baghdad. One who lights up, her face would light up everything around it. He says, لا أكذب الله ثوب الصبر منخرق. He says, I won't lie by Allah. My patience is like a cloth that has been torn. عني بفرقته لكن أرقعه. By separation from her. And he says, and I'm like somebody trying to patch it together. He says, رزقت ملكا فلم أحسن سياسته وكل من لا يسوس الملك يخلعه. He says, I was given a kingdom, if I think about it. I had this beautiful wife. But anybody who's given a kingdom and does not look after it well is always removed from that kingdom. وَمَنْ غَدَى لَابِسًا ثَوْبَ النَّعِيمِ بِلَا شُكْرٍ عَلَيْهِ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ يَنْزِعُهُ. And he says, whosoever Allah gives a gift to, but he is not grateful, Allah removes that gift from them. And here he's talking about, he had really, when he thinks about it, what did he not have? Love, company, friends. Like he had these things, but he says, إني لأقطع أيامي وأنفقها بحسرة منه في قلبي تقطعه. He says, this regret, it tears my heart every day. Now this, he says, ما كنت أحسب أن الدهر يفجعني به ولا أن بي الأيام تفجعه. He says, I never thought, and here faja is to do with announcing death. Like he says, I never thought that the day would come that I would be told, given the bad news of separation by death to do with her. Nor did I ever think she would be given such bad news about me. And then he says, وَإِن يَدُمْ أَبَدًا هَذَا الْفِرَاقُ لَنَا فَمَا الَّذِي بِقَضَاءِ اللَّهِ نَصْنَعُ. Oh, sorry, before that, عَسَى اللَّيَالِ الَّتِي أَخْنَتْ Right. عَسَى اللَّيَالِ الَّتِي أَخْنَتْ بِفُرْقَتِنَا جِسْمِي سَتَجْمَعُنِي يَوْمًا وَتَجْمَعُهُ. He says, maybe that which has destined us to be separated will someday unite us. And then he gives his final line, which I just read before, وَإِن يَدُمْ أَبَدًا هَذَا الْفِرَاقُ لَنَا. But what if we are destined to forever be separated now? فَمَا الَّذِي بِقَضَاءِ اللَّهِ نَصْنَعُ. Is there anything we can do to turn back the decree of God? Allah. And he was found dead with that poem in his hand. Ya salam. Ya salam. This, I read that and I was like, whoa. Or in the words of Ghalib, he says, हो चुकी गालिब बलाएं सब तमाम एक मर्गे नागहानी और है. Allah, Allah. He says, Ghalib, all the calamities have now been. I've endured them all. The only thing I now have left is a sudden death. Allah, Allah, to spring upon me. That poem, honestly, of Ghalib. Ho chuki Ghalib balaएं सब तमाम एक मर्गे नागहानी और है. That there's just this untimely, this sudden death that is the final calamity. But this was really, it was quite heartbreaking to read the story of Ibn Zurayq, really. I thought I'd share it with you guys and further thrust you guys into a spiral of disheartened depression. Right, so what is going down, people? What is going down? Let me just bring up some reason. Wasif Beir has asked, given the progress shown by SpaceX and Blue Origin, it's very likely that humans will colonize space and Mars soon. How will we pray facing Qibla on Mars then? I think that's not a problem. We would just come up with something. I mean, you could just see the Qibla is just really a center of, just a center of attention for, it's just a focal point during prayer and things like that. It's just symbolic. People could just come up with one. It doesn't mean that, you know, and they could somehow, for example, base it on something. So the day they inaugurate it, for example, whichever way the earth is from there, they could maybe set out a direction like that. And from that point forward, just keep that as the direction. Simple as that. Everybody just points to wherever that was on Mars. Wherever they landed could be the Qibla. It could be, it's not really that difficult. You ignored my question as usual. Why? Well, shukran for the super chat. I mean, Ishaq Mullah. Why is that the question? Why did I? I don't know what the question is. Send it again, and I'll try to answer. All right. Whoa, the questions are going so fast. Have you asked Sheikh Asrar al-Haq? Damn, I didn't, but I will. There is a hadith of the Prophet not looking at people who had long mustaches but no beards. Is this an example of intolerance? No, I mean, I don't think that hadith is sahih that the Prophet never looked at them. There's a hadith that the Prophet asked that what is this custom? And they said, well, our lords have told us to do this. But that hadith also begins by them prostrating, first of all, to the people. And then the Prophet says, why do you prostrate like that to us, or to people? And they said, well, that's what we do to our kings and elders. And the Prophet said, don't do that. And then he said, why do you do this? Like, how come you shave this and grow this? They used to have really big mustaches. So they just said, that's our custom. And the Prophet said, oh, well, well, we're asked not to be like that. But I think that wasn't to do with, you see, God isn't interested in how you keep your hair. It was more so about the kind of how you treat people. How you, as in, you see, this kind of the aristocracy, or the arrogance of the aristocracy of the what was in that time the Persian dynasty that you had. Need to get that heated up, right? So it's more about the arrogance of what they were portraying and representing. It wasn't the fact that, oh, Allah doesn't like you to have hair on your face. Then that doesn't make any sense. Why would it bother God about the kind of, obviously, if God has made you that way to grow hair, and then you grow it in a particular way, but then what, God would get angry? That doesn't make any sense. So yeah. What is going on? All right. Right, so somebody says, I want him to analyze exactly that verse. I don't know what verse you're talking about. Right, so angry face posse. Oh, are the angry faces going on? No idea. I can't really see them here. Sufyan, you're doing it with the stars. You're doing it. I asked you if you need ijazah to teach. Oh, Ishaq Mullah had asked, right, okay, that's an interesting one. Do you need ijazah to teach? I guess, you see, what ijazah means is an authorization, as a recognition, it means. In essence, once you break it all down, it means a recognition that you are capable. Now, I think that would be important in the social world at some level. So whether it's going to be from a university, from a madrasa, you've passed a test, or a teacher says, well, you're pretty good at this now. That's what it's there. It's a check. It's checks and balances to make sure people ain't just being stupid. And I'm going to play a clip in a moment about some Salafi, the Masala segment, and his incredible wisdom. And this is what happens when you don't have a license, because you just, it's dumb teaching the dumb, and you're just making people dumber. All in the name of Islam. Islam is like, acha, cha, cha. Thanks, yaar. It's not like I didn't have a bad rap already with all these terrorists. Now I've got these these God-gifted geniuses to give me the image of just being stupid. So that's, so ijazah, that's what it means. I suppose from an Islamic viewpoint, it's not about, if a person knew something, they could teach it. It's not that. See, you don't need a piece of paper, technically speaking. It's not from an Islamic perspective. But what it is, it comes back to if you know, and here you have to pause. Do you actually know, though? Do you know is the question. Or do you just think you know? This is like the story, I've told it before, where a researcher, he decides to, self-proclaimed scientist, a biologist, a zoologist. He decides that, he's going to investigate flies and communication with flies. And so what he does is he gets this fly and he's got it in this thing, and then what he does is he plucks out one wing, and first of all he's got the fly, and then he's telling flies flying around everywhere, and he's talking to the fly like he's giving it instructions, but the fly isn't listening. He's saying, okay, fly around, okay, stop. Obviously the fly's just doing whatever it's doing, it's not listening, but he's thinking, maybe it's listening, maybe it's listening. He thinks, what, he pulls one of the wings off, and then he says, fly around now, fly around. And the fly is flying, but it's struggling because it's got one wing, and it's, kind of like struggling, and says, interesting. He makes a note, interesting. Then he pulls the other wing off, and he puts the fly there. He goes, fly around. And the fly's just standing there. He says, fly around. And then he goes, interesting. So he writes his conclusion, and his conclusion is that, when a fly's got both wings, it's kind of haphazard, and it's, it's doing all these things, and it's out of control, and feels constricted. And then he says, when you pull one wing off, a fly struggles, but it still has the survival, and it does all of this, and it tries to fight against the circumstance. And then he says, but if you pull two wings out, the fly becomes deaf. So his conclusion was that when I pulled the two wings out, the fly became deaf, because when I was saying move, it wouldn't move now. So so this is the example, you see. That's the example, people, of there's no harm in teaching if you know. The problem is, do you know? It's the question.
I am Salafi.
I am
And I
Salafi.
don't care what anyone says.
I don't.
I'm Salafi.
I'm
Every
Salafi.
one of you is not Salafi. You're not Salafi and you're not Salafi. I'm the Salafi.
So that's the problem, you see. The question is, do they know? Now, I can't read that name. I still don't understand why you have to go by hadith. I mean, like, give me one verse from the Quran that needs explaining by something outside of the Quran. Yeah, it's not about that, you see. It's about the Sunnah. Why do we go by the Sunnah of the Prophet? Because the Prophet ﷺ was the living embodiment of the Quran. And it's only understandable that he, being the best of creation, showed us many things by example. Many, whether it's day-to-day things, whether it's how you deal with problems, whether it's, you see, it's not just the rulings, but it's the tools that are applied. How do you have relationships? How do you, how did he deal when people were arguing in front of him? How did he advise about? Now, it doesn't mean that the principles to these things are not in the Quran. They are. The Quran will tell you that, look, you should look after orphans. But the Prophet would show it by example. You would find out stories. You would learn. You would learn about the life of the Prophet. You'd see how he... Now, this is an inspiration for Muslims. To live a life, to say, well, the Prophet is meaningless. He's just... He came, he brought the Quran, goodbye, we don't really want to know anything about you. Or if we do, it's just... That is generally seen as a disservice to Islam. Because the Prophet is much more than just a vehicle. He's not like just somebody that just conveyed revelation. He embodied it. So, yes, I mean, it's the Sunnah, and we know as a fact that Sunnah, so much of that we know that it existed. We know that many things were accurate. We know through, and the Sunnah is captured in the living tradition of after the Prophet, which was then captured by fiqh, and was also documented amongst several hadith. The hadith is not a perfect portrayal of the Sunnah, but the hadith is like a database which contains some of the Sunnah in it. It would contain, but it would contain other things. Fiqh does contain the Sunnah as well as other things as well. So you have to, you can kind of piece together this picture through different narrations. Think about it. If we, just said, hadith, what is the point of any hadith? Then we wouldn't know anything about the Prophet. We wouldn't know, like you wouldn't even know, for example, what were the Prophet's wives' name? Where did the Prophet grow up? What city did he live in? What was Medina Yathrib? You wouldn't know that if it wasn't for the Sunnah. How would you know who the companions were? How would you wouldn't know anything. These names are not in the Quran. You don't get the story of all these things in the Quran. They're not there. There's nothing there. How many children did the Prophet have? Did the Prophet have children in that sense? Did he have children? I mean, these things are not necessarily clear in the Quran. It does say, okay, he's not a father of the men amongst you. But you could infer certain things, but it doesn't talk about this, about the Prophet's life like that. It does. So everything you know about Islam really comes from the literature around, the living tradition, the kind of that captured it. Otherwise, you don't know anything about Islam. Makkah is only mentioned, like one time in the Quran? It's not even mentioned. Like, how do you know where anything happened? How do you know where the Prophet even was? This is why they say today, because they reject hadith, they say, the Prophet wasn't even in Makkah, he was in Petra. Why? Because the Quran doesn't even really specify where the Prophet is. It doesn't, you don't know anything. This is why to just say, I'm going to take all the Sunnah around the Prophet's life and just throw it in the bin, because why do we need it? you would have no knowledge of the Prophet or his companions or anything, how Islam evolved, who were the people, what were the challenges. I mean, you could get some inferences, that there seems to be some challenge because this verse is talking about some opposition, but you'd have no idea. You wouldn't really know what was happening. You wouldn't really even know where the Prophet was in the world. You just, I mean, your every assumption is just because of the living tradition of Islam. It's not because of the Quran. The Quran doesn't specify where the Prophet was living. So, yeah, I mean, I think to deny these things is to really just deprive yourself. Like, what you're left with is a very shallow version of the faith. That's to me anyway. That's what I feel. Right. So, Mufti, what is your view on Malik al-Ashtar? Right. So, you see, Malik al-Ashtar, to be honest, I'm not fond of Malik al-Ashtar. In my reading of him, people might get upset, but you see, I feel that Malik al-Ashtar was not. I feel the general Sunni narrative is that he was involved in the killing of Uthman, and he was one of the chiefs that was involved in that killing. He didn't actually kill him, but he was one of the main chiefs and one of the main fighters that was giving strength to that gang that attacked Uthman and laid siege to his house and then eventually killed him. But there was a whole kind of there was that insurgency had a whole group of people, but amongst them were I think there were several groups, but each group had a chief. And amongst the kind of main chieftains, if you like, the main people that were like the upper league was Malik al-Ashtar. And so I feel he wasn't a good person. He was definitely a bad person in my understanding. He was very heavy-handed. He was an absolute warrior. I mean, they don't deny that. He was one of the greatest fighters of the Arabs. And this is why Sayyidina Ali radiallahu an uses him. And that's, for example, me as a person and many Muslims previously, that's a point that they would have disagreed with Sayyidina Ali on. They would feel that, Sayyidina Ali radiallahu an did use him, made him his second in command, because he was a ruthless fighter and he was like a feared Arab throughout the whole, his reputation preceded him. He was like a warrior, absolute warrior. So, and obviously that's the reason why Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anh made him the second in command. But he was a murderer of Uthman. I mean, what's he doing in second of command? It added and it agitated the other Muslims because they felt that what's going on here. And this then feeds that theory that they felt that the murderers of Uthman, because the murderers of Uthman were sympathetic with Ali radiallahu anh, and there were some theories that Ali was sympathetic with them, even though the Sunnis don't generally endorse that, but that is a theory out there. That was one of the theories that Sayyidina Ali kind of turned a blind eye to the killing of Uthman, and he was almost like, as in, it didn't bother him. This is one of the theories. I don't agree with that theory, but I'm just saying this. But at the time, later on, when Sayyidina Ali did things like this, like made Malik al-Ashtar his second in command, you can imagine the frustration with the other people, because then this just reinforces that theory in saying, well, okay, if he's your second in command and he seems to be one of the guys behind the murder of Uthman. So yeah, but this is that whole Sunni Shia kind of split, isn't it? This is where people would disagree, because I think he is a revered figure according to the Shia. Yeah, but I mean, according to Sunnis, generally he's not revered, and some may be a bit okay, as in some are. I don't think, generally speaking, Sunnis, my impression is they don't like him at all. That's the Sunni position. but some will be perhaps more outspoken than others against him. So some kind of are like, they don't like him, but they're not that outspoken against him. And some are like heavily outspoken against him. So I don't like him personally. From my reading of history, he was very heavy-handed. He was ruthless. He murdered many Muslims. He was sent to fight against those companions who were neutral. So there was a group of companions who did not partake with Ali or Muawiyah radiallahu anhum. They just kind of withdrew and they went to, I think it's called Kharabta, a place in Egypt. But Malik al-Ashtar is the one that is then sent to crush them. And even though they were neutral, they weren't against Sayyidina Ali, but they weren't for him either. So, but they weren't with Muawiyah either. They were just people who did not want any fighting. They were kind of, conscientious objectors. So yeah, so I'm kind of like that. I feel that war was always wrong, and it didn't bring any good to anyone. And the civil war, to be honest, is what halted the Muslim advance. So if you, even history through non-Muslim sources will show you that during the Khulafa time, Islam was spreading rapidly throughout the lands. And it's when the civil war breaks that it gives the Byzantines and all these people an opportunity to kind of retroop, to get their strength together, to re-strategize, to build up forces, because they had a couple of years to do that then, because the civil war lasts amongst Muslims for a couple of years. So, yeah. So I don't think war was a good idea, but not to get distracted. I understand, look, to some people, maybe they revere Malik al-Ashtar. So look, that's their opinion. I'm not going to say you shouldn't have that. This is my opinion. To me, it doesn't make a difference. It's not like he's a companion of the Prophet anyway. And I don't believe, anyway, I suppose. Let's leave that. But my point is that, to me, that's my opinion on it. Cool. Right. What's the next question? Look at that. Was the son of Abu Bakr radiallahu an with the killers of Uthman? He was. The son of Abu Bakr, Muhammad, was from the killers of Uthman. That's true. Although he did later on acknowledge he was wrong. Yeah. You see, that there was the difference is, you see, there was just chaos at that time, I guess. And people were kind of, it was what it was, I guess. All right. Muhammad ibn Abu was those who didn't support what was going on with Uthman's government. That's true. Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr, the son of Abu Bakr, was against Uthman. But they say, he kind of felt sorry about what he did and regretted. But he wasn't a key player. He was just like a pawn in the whole thing. You see, he's just like somebody that, even though the people they send in the end to attack him and kill Uthman are not the key players. They're just like the little pawns they send. Like, go on. They just egg them on and get them to do it. But they were the key players behind it were these chiefs. Because there were hundreds of them, the insurgents. In fact, some say thousands of them. And it was the chief people that were the key players, the people who held power. It wasn't these little people. They were just playing on their sentiments, winding them up, because they were a bit frustrated with whatever. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Somebody saying, is Mufti over? No, I think I've just been exhausted today. That's all, honestly. I don't normally get exhausted, but invite Mustafa Briggs on Mindtrap. I have actually invited Mustafa Briggs. He did say to me he's in the UK now and he wants to do it, but yeah, I don't. as soon as we can, definitely. Right. And then also HT. Maybe some point HT. Who's HT? Hizb ut-Tahrir. Hizb ut-Tahrir. Maybe someday when we're totally bored. Hizb ut-Tahrir are just a cancer. Salman Moyin, shukran. Much love for your Snapchat. Likewise, Ishaq, shukran. Right, so have you talked about the Battle of the Camel? A lot of historical questions today. Wah. لا در در امرئ يطري أوائله ويطرق رأسه إن سألته ما هو. People who go on about the past. Yeah, so Battle of the Camel. I have spoken about the Battle of the Camel. That's to do with where Aisha radiallahu anha is set up against Ali and that fight, yeah. But yeah, Inaya, even you're getting deleted now, lol. Okay. Salam Mufti, can you talk about the Battle of the Camel? Yaar, ye Battle of the Camel, ye battle. Yaar, ye pyar mohabbat wali baatein kahan gayi? Where this one? Where the love gone, man? Why all the battle? Right, what's all of... Right, so what's... People are like, talk about this battle, talk about that battle. It's what happened to all the love and the peace and the... Which reminds me, I haven't read an Urdu poem today, man. Where's an Urdu? I had this Urdu poem somewhere. Hi. This was Munir Niazi, people. गम की बारिश ने भी तेरे नक्श को धोया नहीं, तूने मुझको खो दिया, मैंने तुझे खोया नहीं. नींद का हल्का गुलाबी सा खुमार आंखों में था, यूं लगा जैसे वो शब को देर तक सोया नहीं. हाय जुर्म आदम ने किया और नस्ल आदम को सजा. He's saying Adam alayhi salam committed the what he committed, but the children, the progeny have been punished. That's what he's saying. जुर्म आदम ने किया और नस्ल आदम को सजा, काटता हूं जिंदगी भर मैंने जो बोया नहीं. That we have to go through what we did not, like we reap what we did not sow. This obviously is pointing to the original sin, which isn't really an Islamic concept at all, but still, I guess, if you want to say, जानता हूं एक ऐसे शख्स को मैं भी मुनीर, गम से पत्थर हो गया लेकिन कभी रोया नहीं. Hi. He says, I know a certain person of that caliber, Munir, who has become completely hollowed out by his pain, yet refuses to ever cry. Wah. गम की बारिश ने भी तेरे नक्श को धोया नहीं, तूने मुझको खो दिया, मैंने तुझे खोया नहीं. जानता हूं एक ऐसे शख्स को मैं भी मुनीर, गम से पत्थर हो गया लेकिन कभी रोया नहीं. Wow. Right, people, what is going on? Oh, right, before... What's going on here? Was the Mufti Abu Alpha al-YouTubi? Oh, is this a hater, Rini? We got hater on here. Have any classical scholars ever criticized accepting hadith from Khawarij? Yes, of course, they would. Imam Malik, the Don. Hence, he criticized taking hadith of Ikramah because he was Khawarij. I mean, it's ridiculous, just because Bukhari accepts some of the, when it comes to Imran ibn Hittan and he takes his hadith, he was a ridiculous Khariji who was hell-bent against Sayyidina Ali. He was one of the key people that praised those who murdered Ali, radiallahu an. And, yet Bukhari accepts his hadith. And this, it's dumb. The justification that Ibn Hajar gives is stupid. It's it's
stupid. I'm not going to let you get the chance.
But that's the kind of justification that Ibn Hajar and these people give. Well, they say, well, because these people consider any sin to be kufr, then they wouldn't lie because lying is a sin. And so if they lied, they would be kafir. So was it your dad that was committing the murders? They used to only murder people. The Khawarij were some of the most ruthless murderers in Islamic history. It's documented how they would torture villages, like when they ransacked Basra and these places, the stories about how they would slice the stomachs of pregnant women and all these things. This was known about the Khawarij. But they won't lie, innit? Toba. It's kufr, innit, to lie. And your chacha over here is butchering people. That isn't kufr. So you think if they can do that, they can't lie? I mean, that's the dumbest, stupid. That's just such a, so, that is just, sorry, I didn't use this. So that theory, sorry. You know what it is? Look, in Hadith, you have two camps of people. You have the Hadith absolutists and the Hadith relativists. The absolutists are dogmatists when it comes to Hadith. You see, to them, it's not so much about what the Hadith says, it's about the craft of Hadith and making sure that not a single scratch hits the craft. Like, it doesn't matter about the content. It's like a ship. To them, what's not important is those who are afloat on the ship or aboard the ship. It's that the ship must stay intact. I don't give a damn if there's a cow standing on it, or if there's a person, or if there's bad people or good people, or if they're smuggling, or if they're going to visit family, or if they're going on a pilgrimage. It makes no difference to me. To them, it's just the craft has to remain unscathed. So from this camp are people like Imam Bukhari and the great, those kind of muhaddithin, the Hadith project, those who are all about the Hadith project. And later people like Dhahabi and, you're going to get Ibn Salah as well to some extent. Ibn Hajar, definitely. He's an absolutist. And so these people, they don't care what the content of the Hadith is. The craft cannot be scathed or scratched. Then you get Hadith relativists. To them, the craft is secondary or tertiary. It's about who it's carrying, who comes across on the ship. Is that person a good person? Is that person a bad person? Let me just... So, is that person a murderer? Is that blurry still? All right, it's got better. Right, so that's people like Imam Malik. They pioneer that camp where they are, no, they will reject the Hadith. They don't care about the craft. It's about what's being transmitted. So, yeah, so people like Ibn Hajar, his justifications are always to simply save the craft. That's his utmost goal. He will bend over backwards. He will, do three, I don't know, kind of like somersaults in the air and land and and then bend over backwards. He will do anything by any means necessary. He will preserve the concept, not the concept, preserve the isnad. That's all that matters to him. I mean, he'll accept the satanic verses, for example. He'll say, "Chalo, wo bhi theek hai." Whatever happens, this ship can't be scratched. I mean, he's a nice guy, but I suppose at this point, saying he's a nice guy isn't, but alright, so that's my point. Shadman says I might just stay single then, better to play the card safe. Oh yeah, are we doing some matching? Is that what we should? are we doing like a blind date thing going on here? Are we arranging, setting people up, speed dating? Mufti Abu Layth, who else from the Khalaf criticized some hadith? Many people criticized hadith. Imam Malik, Imam Abu Hanifa, the early Salaf were very critical of hadith. In fact, they draw a distinction between hadith and sunnah. Mufti, was Ibn Hajar the original Zurayq? He was. And he had a fine taste in women as well, apparently, they say. This is why he has a special liking with me. I think like, wow, what a guy, huh? You can't... But, so what is going on? Mufti, is cannabis haram? I've got a detailed video on cannabis. Watch that. I do say that cannabis... See, marijuana is... I explain that there's several caveats and then it's not haram. But I do explain that if people are, for example, over a certain age when the neural networks in the brain have pretty much settled, the plasticity is kind of fully fledged, kind of grown out there. It's not so above the age of 25. I think for people under that age, it would be haram. And definitely under 18, it would categorically be haram. The damage it would do to the neural networks in the brain. Any kind of psychoactive substance would damage the neural networks if they've, whilst they're still growing. So once they've grown, then I don't feel it's haram, but I've got a detailed video explaining it, about responsibility and things like that. And obviously it's an issue of legality. Right, so what is going on? Yeah, somebody said wording distinction between hadith and sunnah. Yeah, Imam Malik was at the forefront of making that distinction, as was Abu Hanifa. They did not, hadith was not necessarily supreme, but sunnah was. Right, so Mufti Saab, why do non-Arab Muslims act Arab? I suppose there's, I suppose there's nothing wrong in acting Arab if a person wants to act Arab. Arabs are amazing people as well. One may even argue God's gift to man. But I think it's not even Arabs, because there's a particular type of Arab, which is the Saudi, the Gulf Arab. The Saudi, because Arabs, remember, stretch all the way from the Middle East right to Al-Maghrib Al-Arabi, which is modern-day Morocco and Mauritania, and everything in between. So it's not, Arabs generally are not what you're picturing when you're picturing somebody in a long thobe and wearing, a long, or having a long beard and wearing that kind of the red and white scarf and things like this, and the women dressed in black, and that's Saudi Arabia specifically, and the Gulf by extension. But beyond that, it's not. Arabs are not like that. So, Syrian Arabs are not like that. Iraqi Arabs are not like that. Egyptian Arabs are not like that. Libyan Arabs are not like that. Tunisian, Algerian, Moroccan, Mauritanian, Sudanese. But my point is, you're taking Lebanese Arabs are not like that. So you're just looking at one or maybe a couple of countries and saying Arabs as a whole. So that's a huge generalization in and of itself. Yeah, but if people want to act Arab, people can act whatever they want. I mean, who cares? It's their life. Do whatever you like. But yeah, I mean, it's not. Islam is not defined by being an Arab, for example. But there are certain things about the Arabic that will always be bound with Islam. That is true. So the Quran is an Arabic Quran, and forever it will immortalize the language of the Arabs. And the Prophet was an Arab, and so therefore we do have that kind of ihtiram, that kind of honor and respect and love for, for Arabs in that sense. We do. It doesn't mean there's a supremacy. It just means a kind of love for the Prophet, out of honor to the Prophet. That's all it kind of means. Yeah, but it doesn't. And the flip side of that is sometimes that there's this thing of there's this supremacy which sometimes non-Arabs feel that all Arabs have a supremacy, which they don't per se. There's no, Islam does not say that the Arab is better than the Ajam. And the irony, not the irony, and then you find it amongst Arabs as well. I will tell you that there have been many Arab mashayikh who, especially those in the Western world, who will have a problem, for example, with people like me, not because of just the way I look. Obviously that many people will have a problem with that. But they will have a problem with me because they will think, how can he be, how can he know this stuff? How can he be learned in Islam and he's not even an Arab? Like I've experienced that they think that, what can he possibly know? He's not even an Arab. And I think, well, well, I'm here to set the record straight. It's like, putar, this is the 21st century. So, but there is this thing. I've had, several people. Sometimes they, on purpose, that they'll be stubbornly reject me, even if they won't say this but they'll say to people around them that, and then people will tell me. That this is what they say, that how can he know? I've had people say, how can he know the Maliki madhab? How? He's not even an Arab and he's a Pakistani. And what the hell do Pakistanis know about the Maliki madhab? The Hanafis, and what do they know about it? I'd say that's true if I was an average Pakistani. पर अपन जरा अलग है. That's the but I'm a bit different, this one. That's Peoples, inni wa in kuntul akhira zamanuhu. لآتم بما لم تأتي الأوائل. So that's what the poet says. He says, I'll come with things that are unprecedented, that those before me could not do. But you do get this sometimes. So you get it both ways. You get it from people who raise people on a pedestal, this whole thing of, and then you get it the other way, that there's, that kind of discrimination, that how can, but in all honesty, the Ajam, the non-Arabs it doesn't mean Arabs haven't, but also Ajam have incredibly served this deen. When you look back, the greatest accomplishments, or many of, not all, but many of the greatest accomplishments within Islam weren't done by people of Arab heritage. They spoke Arabic, maybe they learnt Arabic, but they weren't Arabs. Most of the great scholars of Islam weren't Arabs. We speak of Bukhari, we speak of Tirmidhi, you speak of Abu Dawood. Abu Dawood was all the way from modern day Pakistan. I mean, you speak of Abu Hanifa, whose families came from Afghanistan, Kabul, they came from. You speak of, most of these people weren't. Even when you look at the rulership, the whole thing about the Turkic people, not Turkish, but Turkic people that came up from the kind of Eastern European steppes. They came down, and how they were running the show behind the scenes for centuries. I mean, during the Abbasid era, and the whole Mamluks were them. That was them. Prior to them, the Persians were running the show. I mean, it's not, whether you look at it politically, whether you look at it, and even when the whole crafts and the sciences were about to die out, and Nizam al-Mulk, when he sets up for Malik Shah, the Persian king, who was at his time the greatest ruler, and he was Muslim. In fact, I don't even think he spoke Arabic. He used to just do everything in Farsi, I believe. But in his time, the vizier, this Nizam al-Mulk, he's the one who sets up this Madrasa Nizamiya in Baghdad, and thereby keeps alive the Islamic sciences by setting up this patronage and all of this throughout the Muslim lands. So there has been a huge khidmah done by non-people. They obviously all spoke Arabic. I mean, I speak Arabic in that sense. Everything that we read is in Arabic. People, they were part of the tongue, but they weren't by descent Arabs. So yeah, and it is a shame, these kind of things. But it doesn't mean, just to come back to that question, it doesn't mean that, to be holy, you have to be Saudi. Mufti, straight people can marry, still do adultery. Straight people can. What's that question? Is it too much to tell LGBT to remain celibate? I was thinking of trying to get a, speaking of LGBT, I was trying to get a, thinking of getting a lesbian. Is a lesbian an offensive word? I don't know. I don't think it is it? Isn't that just, it's the feminine of gay? Yeah. So I was thinking of getting a lesbian on the show, Mind Trap, and having these interesting discussions. I think it'd be really fascinating, actually. Right, so like the Dajjal with a small d. That calls for a
Dajjal with a small d. Or we can say mini Dajjals, no problem.
This is my all-time favorite
clip. There is one Dajjal with a big D, okay?
Rhythm, correct?
Rhythm, correct? So, right, but, I asked earlier about philosophical debates from a modern perspective being a result of poor understanding of space-time, nature of infinity, etc. Yeah, I mean, understanding of space-time and all these things. From an Islamic perspective, I don't think you're going to get much on things. They will mention some of these things historically. So they will speak about the atom and the indivisible, Juz' alladhi la yatajazza. Baqalani speaks about it. you will get other people, Farabi, these people will speak on some of these matters, but it's not the same way as today. You're better off just learning it through English. Just learn it through YouTube, honestly. Just go, I seriously say, if you want to learn something, just go to YouTube. Type in, start off with beginners, kind of like crash course in this, like 5-minute, clips, 10-minute clips, then watch an hour clip, half an hour clip, then watch a variety of clips. Now you've got a huge, you'll be surprised how much you already know. Then start reading up a bit, different things, Google questions, YouTube those questions, watch a few documentaries on it, maybe buy a few books at that stage. I think this, I don't know, but this is how I learn a lot of the things I want to learn. I learn them like that. That's my style of learning. Message East London Munda message deleted. East London Munda sent a Snapchat, super chat, shukran, but Seba deleted it. You're doing it. Right, wrestling, shukran, by the way, for the super chat. And likewise, Kapil, much love. Right, so Muftis, what's your view on Niccolo Machiavelli? Yeah, I think Machiavelli was, he had a point, really, in many of his things. The whole thing about things like The Prince, which he writes for, which is kind of like, it's one of those, what do they call it? Bloody my brain is just not functioning today. I'm so exhausted. They call it the mirror, what do they call it? Mirror texts or mirror, but it's for the rulers. They basically books written that were designed for kings or rulers to read, and it was like the guide to how to rule, and it have like wisdoms in there. And the whole thing about Machiavelli is he shows that the fitra of human beings, the essence, is a sinister, conniving essence. It's one that's out there to get you, to do one over you. Whereas Thomas Hobbes and these people will have a different, arguably, but Jean-Jacques Rousseau, for example, would have a very kind of like a soft, that nature, our fitra in essence, is more benevolent and kind. And I feel that that's interesting. I feel that, you see, we have the capacity to do both, but maybe our nature could be self-centered. I think we learn compassion. I think we have compassion anyway, but I don't think our compassion is universal. I think it's to those who are near and dear, like animals. And the difference between us and animals is we can extend that to humanity. But I think that might be a learned process. Obviously, through empathy, we could do it as well. But I just mean that I think, in my understanding, in line with several studies as well, we are born quite bigoted. Like babies are usually like bigots. Babies are just tyrants. Might be a cute tyrant, but he's a tyrant. You see, so you've got, they're just like bigots and selfish as hell, and they don't give a damn about anybody or anything, and they're xenophobic. I think they wouldn't like anything different to them. And I think the rest is a learning curve. They start learning tolerance, they learn compassion. That's what a lot of studies show. And I kind of fall in line with that. I think that it is true. But I don't know about telling grown-ups to be, you see, because the thing about The Prince is it's telling the person to always be conniving. which is interesting, but and definitely holds truth. But I don't know if I'd want that to be the universal standard. Do you understand? Because that's another thing. You see, there's things we wouldn't mind doing, but we wouldn't want other people to be doing them. This is where the hypocrisy comes out. All right. So, whoa, is that the time? You know what? We should start wrapping up soon. Right. Why is this dunya patriarchal? Yeah, that's a very fascinating question, actually. Babies are bigoted, Inaya says, in the sense they choose people with symmetrical faces. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure because that's a sign of it's kind of, it pleases them to look at, I guess. It's a sign of what is aesthetically appealing, beautiful to them. Whereas asymmetry is seen as something distorted. Yeah. But there's not only symmetry, there's also proportionality. So, I mean, you could be symmetrical, but if your eyes are like... So it could be symmetrically like that, or if they're both positioned over there, or if your ears are positioned like over there, or... So it's not just symmetry, there's also proportionality, like the distance between one eye to the other eye in the ratio of the face. All of these things are taken into consideration for that aesthetic kind of resonance. Yeah. Right, so what is going on? Love you too, Mufti ji, Allah dita. Right, well, Allah dita tha fir asan ko na. We have to as well love you too, Allah dita, since God gave you. Right, so did the Prophet or the companions wear earrings? Okay, calm and take off your shirt. Scandal, yaar, muft mein scandal ho jayega yahan pe. Right, coming to the question, did the Prophet wear... No, the Prophet never wore earrings. Most likely his grandsons wore earrings. They were companions. Hassan, Hussein, both wore earrings, radiallahu anhuma. Maybe other companions did, maybe. But you see, the question is, people say, well, why didn't anybody report it? But they didn't see this as report worthy. It's not a... it's like, you see, you're in a day and age where you're finding it interesting, but to them it wasn't interesting. It's, like to them it was just like, why would anybody even care? But obviously, give 1400 years and here we are. Obsessed. Right? Yeah, there was a companion with a golden nose. Yeah, that's because he'd had his nose cut off. Did Muslim men have long hair back then? Yes, I mean, most of the companions had braided hair. They used to tie little plaits into their hairs. And even the Prophet did that as well. But they all generally, as a fashion thing, they had long hair. The Arabs did anyway. Mufti, you need to get a subreddit. What's a subreddit? There you do a post, and we can add our questions there for Monday night. Right, I'm not sure what that is. Golden nose, wow. But I think that was partially aesthetics, and the reason it was golden was obviously, one, it's easy to mold, and two, it doesn't rust and things like that. So, all right. So, did I miss anything that I want to definitely cover? Let me see. All right. Nope, that's all fine with the certain points. All right, let's go to peoples. Oh, right, I did see this, by the way. There was, let me just bring this up. So, nah, Ignore it. I realized I'd removed the thing. So, right, people, let's... The masala segment, masala. So this is the sub-masala. This is a tiny bit. This isn't this masala. This isn't what I want to talk about. But I saw this. Somebody sent me this. And the Oscar goes to our beloved. Our beloved.
Got him! Got him!
But what I did want to share with you guys was actually the pious predecessors, people, the pious.
I am Salafi.
I am Salafi.
And I don't care what anyone says. I'm Salafi.
I'm
Every
Salafi.
one of you is not Salafi. You're not Salafi, and you're not Salafi.
You're not Salafi. You're not Salafi. I am Salafi. So, people, speaking of Salafis, we've got the Salafi genius here. Some person, a sheikh. You see, this is what happens when they say blind leading the blind. All right, so people. All right, going down. So we've got here, I believe, let me just bring...
in front of the house, and they hung an air freshener on the mirror, you know, the little pine tree thing. Innocent, right?
Air
so I
freshener.
told my son, let's take this off and keep it here, and let's not allow anybody to hang the pine tree on the rear view mirror. Why would I do that?
Because it's the same gun, it's the same thing.
We're hanging something on the car, right? Now, you got to understand, it's a pine tree. What's it for?
Smell, odor.
It's to take care of any bad smell in the car and to make the car smell nice. It's an air freshener.
But
Right? So
why does the
say,
beard
really?
look like a pine tree,
That's
though?
how far you're going to go with this? You're going to remove the air freshener from your rear view mirror? What would be my evidence to say yes, and this is my tawheed, and this is
Actually
why?
having a debate
What
on
would be
this.
my evidence for that?
These little air
The hanging of the
fresheners.
weapons on the tree before that in Kitab al-Tawheed.
Following the ways of the
Before this chapter. Go before this chapter. Aywa. Ahsan. Whoever hangs a thing, then he'll be entrusted into it. Something more general than that.
More than that, even. Evidence, bring me dalil.
The hadith of Abu Bashir sent a messenger out. Tell them to remove every string around every riding beast.
Allah.
Did he say, tell them to ask each person why they have a string? And if there is some shirk connected to that string, then remove the string, otherwise leave the strings? Or did he say, get rid of every string? Make sure that there remains no riding beast with a bowstring around it, except that it's cut off. No questions about why. Why is that done? Saddan lidhara'i. This principle here. So that those people who would eventually go into, this protects my animal and it keeps my riding animal from being harmed, or it makes it strong, or keeps it healthy, or whatever. And that is either through that Allah protects the riding beast, or eventually, after the lesser form of shirk is reached, then it's the bowstring itself.
May Allah protect his glasses.
My animal, and so on. And today we don't have camels and horses, but today we have cars. So for the very same reason, we should remove those air fresheners, right? And look for the reward in removing those air fresheners, and not say, but really it's just an air freshener. What's wrong with an air freshener? And I mentioned to you a second reason why you should remove something like that from the rear view mirror of a car. Does anyone know? Less related to religion. Sheikh Asim?
What about those glasses that are suspended from his ears?
Well, specifically, in this state, in this commonwealth. Okay, in the rear view mirror. In the state or the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, for our brother from California, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania's driving codes, it's not allowed to hang anything from your rear view mirror, anything that would take up any space of your view. So aside from the issue of tawheed and shirk, we have the issue of safety first.
Safety.
That this actually does block your view, and it could lead you to harming someone. There's a small chance of that, but why
the
not?
wonderful colors going on in his beard are just slightly distracting me.
To block all pathways towards something that would be impermissible. And then after all of that, to comply with code and not to be fined, not to have a chance for...
This is now Sheikh Fawzan refuting him.
الشيخ هذا سائل يقول
هل تعليق أدوات الزينة أو ما فيه رائحة
This is another Salafi sheikh, but refuting that
يعد من
Salafi.
التشبه بتعليق التمائم؟
نعم.
يقول هل تعليق أدوات الزينة أو ما فيه
تعليق أدوات
رائحة
الزينة not
تعليقها
زنا
في السيارة
زينة
يعد من التشبه بتعليق التمائم؟
لا، هذا مباح. تعلق شيء فيه رائحة طيب، رائحة السيارة، أو تعلق فيها شيء فيه زينة يجملها، لا بأس بذلك. نعم.
أستاذ موسى. موسى
عن أبي بشير الأنصاري رضي الله عنه أنه كان مع النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في بعض أسفاره فأرسل رسولا أن لا يبقين في رقبة بعير قلادة من وتر إلا قطعت.
كانوا يقلدون الإبل في الجاهلية، يقلدون الإبل القلائد لاتقاء العين والضرر.
To prevent from the evil eye.
والوتر الجلد المدبوغ، وكانوا يجعلونه للسهام للرمي النبل، فإذا اخلق الوتر جعلوه في رقاب الإبل ليقيها من العين. النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في بعض أسفاره أرسل رسولا لا يبقين في عنق بعير قلادة من وتر، يعني أو من غيره، إلا قطعت.
So this Sheikh Fawzan there refuting Musa, as you've got him right there.
The house.
Allah, Musa Richardson.
I am Salafi.
I am Salafi.
And I don't care what
I don't care. I'm Salafi. I'm Salafi.
Every one of you
I'm
is not
Salafi.
Salafi. You're not.
Oh my God!
This is what basically he tried to do with Islam. That's what basically Musa Richardson just tried to do by teaching Islam. You see, and this is the problem, because we asked earlier on that about having a license to teach. So the hadith that he had is here. It's in Bukhari, transmitted through the Dawn of Medina, Imam Malik, as you can see there, who's transmitting it, that Abu Bashir al-Ansari mentions that the Prophet ﷺ said in a journey whilst they were traveling, that he said that he sent someone, the Prophet sent someone, he said, Allah yabqayanna fi raqbati ba'irin qilada min watarin aw qilada illa quti'at. So they should not, don't leave these things. If you see them, remove them. And what were they? They were these superstitious practices about warding off evil. And the problem with this thought process is it entrenches people into superstition, which is crippling. So Islam came to liberate the human mind and human consciousness from the shackles of superstition. So that's what it is. And then you've got, mashallah, Ustad Richardson with his wonderful, colourful coat of the technicolored beard. Why do people dye their beards orange like that? I mean, I don't know what this Trump thing is going on there, but people for some reason think, oh, this is Sunnah. No, it isn't, but okay. Anyway, so Musa Richardson is teaching people, saying, okay, you know, this is to do with shirk. How can you hang an air freshener, pine air freshener, god damn it? Don't you know that by having one of these you've committed shirk? You are now a pagan.
Oh my God!
This is so. This is the problem, people. This is the problem. This is why you have to learn about Islam. And when somebody said earlier on about ijazah, this is why these things are important. And I think it's also, you know, sometimes it's just common sense as well. Otherwise, you know, you set out to do something magnificent, but what you end up doing Here he is. Sheikh is going, he's explaining Islam, he's explaining... Oh! Not much left now that he can explain about Islam. There's... Alright, I'll tell you what, 1, 2 rapid questions, and then we'll wrap this up, people. You need to learn, people. Otherwise, you end up, if you rely on Google Translate to do your translations, which reminds me, actually, if you rely on just Google Translate, you'll... Can you read the Urdu? मैं आपका माले गनीमत लेना चाहता हूँ. Which means I would like to take your war-captured booty. But it's being translated as I want to grab your booty. What? Yeah. Ho ka raha hai. This is why this one not nice, my friend.
Naughty.
This one big problem, man. This one big problem, you know. So, yep. What is going on? Otherwise, you end up with those kind of translations, people. And this one big problem, you know. Otherwise, they say, मैं आपका माले गनीमत लेना चाहता हूँ. Right, so, peoples. Alright, go on. Any rapid thoughts, questions? Says, Europe, you've been supporting me for months. Shukran. It says, Europe has supported for months. You're doing it, Europe. East London Munda has super chatted. Mufti Saab, can I do 10 minutes mut'a with the Shia girl? Behave. Have some respect. This is the problem, you see, people. This one, you see. So, when Islam, friendly, anti-Islam, you mean? Alright, that's... Are dogs allowed in the house? I've answered that in depth before, but yep, they are, if you want that. Cool. Anything rapid? You know, I'll tell you what, I know a lot of people are... They might... Let me just bring back that chat. See, I've got to switch between the boxes here. Mufti Saab, Jalali been arrested. Has he? No way, I don't know that. Damn, does DMT pose a threat to your soul when you go into the high zone? I don't think so. I think these things connect one to the ruh. As in, the ruh to me is consciousness. So I feel you kind of, it connects that. It's like, it's a portal to that world, the other world. And why, you know, I know people, you see, if you think about it, I think the greatest dalil for that is our mind. The mind is not a tangible thing. And its very existence, I think, reflects the kind of, the abstract concreteness of these things. This kind of portal into consciousness. Because if you think about it, the fact that I have a mind, I don't know if anybody else has a mind. But theory of mind in psychology shows us that we believe in theory of mind based on our own experience of mind. So we assume, well, everybody else has got a mind. It could be, it's possible that other people, you know, are just automatons designed in that way. But that's very incredibly unlikely because based on our own experience of mind. So our own out of mind experience, or this kind of greater expansion of mind, is equally, I feel, valid proof that that realm exists, what we experience. That's my thoughts anyway. Alright, so no sunshine in... Right, no idea what you're talking about, Fred. Right, minority opinions of different schools of thought. Yep, that's permissible. I have got a clip. So people do check out my clips on YouTube. I am releasing new clips every day, by the way. So, if you're looking for something, just search on YouTube with my name, keywords, see if it comes up. I may have already answered something on it. What's your favorite tafsir? I have a bunch of different tafsir that I like, but often I do like Ibn Ashur's, his Tahrir wa Tanweer. I do like, in Urdu, I do like the Urwatul Wuthqa of Maulana Abdul Karim al-Athari. But I mean, I do check several tafsir when I do. Usually, like, if not here, I'll check on my on the phone. I'll the app. There's one, or this website, Al-Bahith Al-Qur'ani. It's a great website to kind of, if you Google that, it comes up, and it brings up all these different tafasir. So I do check a bunch of different ones. Right, so you need to get Gangu Teli on Mind Trap. Hi, Baba Fariduddin Gangu Teli. Right, so Fred is a closet Muslim. Well, ahlan wa sahlan, bienvenidos, Fred. Welcome. You're in great company in that case. So, right, people, well, let's wrap this up then. If you've got any issues, any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Instagram is usually good. You can do Facebook Messenger as well. But yeah. Do subscribe. If you haven't subscribed already, then, what can I say except, you deserve this happening to you.
Dajjal with a small d. Or we can say mini Dajjals. No problem.
Well, that's what it's going to be after that phone.
One Dajjal with a
be
big
with
D,
no D.
Okay?
Wow. Rhythm, correct? Peoples. Right, with that, let's wrap this up. Take very good care of yourselves. Remember me in your kind du'as. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh, people. Exit page. Remember to like, notification bells, or otherwise may your bells happen. May that happen to your bell. Over and out, folks. Over and out.